Hey, what's up, everybody? This week I've got the honor and privilege of having Kristin Gerst with Capricorn Mortgage on the podcast. Looking forward to this quite a bit. Met Kristin several months ago when I started the podcast, and I've been on her show a couple of times. She's a great gal, and we're going to talk about note investing. If you don't know what that is, you need to know what that is, especially if you're into real estate investing. If you've got delusions of possibly one day being able to be a real estate investor that makes all your income through real estate investing, you need to know what note investing is. Kristin is the foremost authority on note investing in DFW and possibly the entire country. I'm honored to have her on. I hope you enjoy the show. And I like to just get rolling and just start talking about stuff. Why did you guys move to Oregon?
So the .com bubble burst. This is what, 2004, early 2004. And I just had my first baby. So I was not going to go back to full-time teaching and stay home with this baby. And my husband's like, hey, there are no jobs in Dallas. All of the wireless engineers are out of work. He goes, you want to do a contract? And I'm like, okay, where can we go? And it was like, he goes, well, let me put in for a couple different, and let me see what's available. And there were some really cool cities, and then Portland, Oregon. And I was like, Portland? And I'm like,
Portland's great.
I didn't know anything about it. I don't know what I was expecting.
Right.
You know, but then you get there, and it's one of like the freaking coolest cities ever. I mean, you're in the middle of all these wineries, hiking, like some of the best hiking in the world is there.
Some of the best cheese in the world. Tillamook.
Tillamook.
Yeah.
Yes, I went to the Tillamook factory.
Yeah.
I'm from France though, so it's arguably really hard to say the best cheese in the world is from Oregon.
Well, I grew up on a dairy farm, so Tillamook is fine, but it's not Cougar Gold or some of the stuff we used to make.
Cougar Gold.
Yeah, Cougar Gold from Washington State.
Okay.
Washington State University's an ag school, and that's my.
So did you have to get up at dawn and go milk?
Sure.
You put your milking hat on?
Yeah, man.
Like that?
That's why when people bellyache about hard work, I'm like, you don't even know what hard work is.
Oh yeah,
You wouldn't know what hard work was if it slapped you in the face.
Yeah, my husband comes from farm people.
Iowa, right?
Yeah, Iowa, and I can't. I mean,
he picked up one of the chickens out there one time when we were. Remember? That was funny.
I'm like, and I have a fear of birds. So
just in general?
Yes.
Even like
an extreme
parakeets?
unrational. Yes. An
really?
Extreme unrational fear of birds.
What about
irrational?
What about like majestic bald eagles?
I don't want them touching me. I can look over and go, oh yeah, that's a beautiful bird.
Right.
I like it over there in its box.
Right.
But you take it out and want to bring it to me and pet it? Hell no. I'm out of here. And then if I'm on a walk, in a park,
right,
and there's like a flock of them there, and my heart rate will just
you get bird anxiety.
I do, and then all of a sudden I start walking faster, and then I'm like breathing harder, and then I just take off running like an insane crazy person.
Well, I mean, we all have our thing, right? Or things, plural. It just depends.
I can't control it.
No, Portland's awesome. The Northwest is the best, in my opinion. I mean, it's so pretty.
It is. It's gorgeous.
It's a little rough politically, but that just is what it is. I guess when you live up there, you just...
It wasn't always like that.
Trade one in for the other.
Then you had all these Californians move north.
Yeah, that seems like a bummer trend that may be recreating itself here, but we'll see what happens.
I hope not.
Hopefully when people move to a state like Texas, they realize what it is that made Texas, Texas.
I'm hoping so. I mean, it has changed so much since I moved here 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So 25 years ago, you had to memorize a saying.
Oh, yeah.
That said, I wasn't, people were like, oh, how do you like Texas?
Mm-hmm.
And it was, I wasn't born here, but I got here as soon as I could.
Absolutely.
And there were bumper stickers back there everywhere. If you don't like Texas, get the hell out.
It's a requirement in Texas schools to teach Texas history.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
I started.
That's not required in Iowa or Oregon.
Well, and I was educated. Well, started my college education up north, and then finished it in Texas. And my first, I'm taking Texas history and U.S. history, and the subject of the Civil War came up, and it wasn't. The guy did not call it the Civil War. I mean, granted, this is 25 years ago. He called it the War of the Northern Aggression.
Yeah.
And then I'm listening to it going, the North did win this, right?
Right.
Because they weren't really covering battles that the North won.
Right.
Because really the South was winning that war for a good portion of it. Those were the battles they talked about. The great battles that the South won and, how they won them. And I'm like, wait a minute, the South did lose this, right?
Right.
So
I guess it's all about perspective.
Yeah.
What'd you study in college?
Electrical engineering.
Yeah?
Is what I started in, yeah.
Right on.
And then I stopped, right? I got married, followed a boy to Texas, got married.
Yeah.
And I took some time off. They didn't have electrical engineering at University of North Texas back then. Not at all.
Gotcha.
So I'm like, what the hell am I going to study? I'm like, damn it. They only had the 2-year technical degree, which would have meant, I'm like, what does that mean? I'm going to be up on an electrical pole or something. So I switched to math, which was a nightmare, even though I had 4 semesters of calculus. Calc 1, 2, 3 and differential equations. But above that, then it gets theory math. And I'm like, no, this sucks. So then I tried, I was marketing and moved around. Finally, one night I read the course catalog for UNT cover to cover. Just one night. And I'm like, I got to figure out what degree I'm doing. And I got to French. And I was born in France. And I'm like, well, I already speak that fluently.
Nice.
So, and I already had a handful of classes. And so all of my electives, so it was you had to take French 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? And then some couple other French things. And then it was all electives, everything else. And so all of my electives are calculus-based physics, engineering, electrical engineering courses, really bizarro. It's a bizarro French degree.
Very interesting.
But I got it in 3 semesters, and I got done. And
hey, get in, get out, get done.
Now I buy and sell mortgage notes, which really I need. I should have gone and gotten a finance degree. I don't know why that didn't pop into my head.
Or business finance, or entrepreneurship, which combines the two. UNT has a great entrepreneurship program. That's what I studied. And
how long ago?
Oh, gosh. 03 is when I graduated.
Okay, so right around the time I was there.
Yeah. How long did you live in France? You were born there?
I moved here when I was about 5.
Military? Is that why?
No. My dad worked for one of the big accounting firms.
Okay. Right on.
So my parents were there for a while.
Yeah?
Yeah. So my younger brother and my younger sister were both born in Paris as well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been to France many times to play rugby.
Awesome.
Were your
Did you also play in England? Did you play in Twickenham?
I did not. No, never played in Twickers. No. You know some rugby though. That's awesome.
Yeah, my cousins have a house right by the rugby field.
Okay.
So you have to walk by them to get to the tube. Right
Nice.
there. So if you know Twickenham.
Yeah. And the Harlequins play right across the street at the Twickenham Stoop, which is the little stadium that's across from Twickenham.
No. Yeah. So I've been to.
Right on.
If you love Twickenham, so.
Yeah. So when you travel, you try to go to back to France as often as possible?
I was hoping to be there this past summer for a while. It's been several years since I've just gone and spent a month.
Right.
But that's kind of what I had been planning on doing this past year. And then, of course, coronavirus. So I'm looking next summer, I'd like to.
Where, Paris or you
I'll go to
the
Paris.
south of France?
I'll go rent an apartment in Paris for,
So you're a Parisian.
I am.
All right.
I'm, that's where all my friends live.
Gotcha.
So it's great. You show up in June and, especially in June, because kids are still in school, so everybody's still in the city.
Sure.
Dinner parties almost every night, and
Nice.
No, it's fun. And then everybody leaves the city, so then I like to go other places. But yeah, no, it's been a minute.
I feel you.
And the last time I went to the Caribbean, I went to French St. Martin, which is like, they're kind of like their Hawaii, whatever.
Gotcha.
French-owned St. Martin. So
but if you speak French, then you're good to go, right? You're right at home.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I have more problems communicating in England than I do.
Well, you can't understand half of what anybody in London says.
They use these words, and I'm like, what? What is that?
Yeah, I'm watching the show on HBO about the finance industry. It's a new show. I think it's called Industry, and you have to watch it with the subtitles, even though it's in English, because you just can't. I'm just like, what is this? I don't even. It's like watching Peaky Blinders.
Oh, I love Peaky Blinders.
Me too. But you have to watch that with the I have to watch it with the subtitles. I can't understand what half those guys are understanding.
You finally get it. But there are times I'm like, what the hell did that guy just say?
Especially the red right hand, Ulster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the one of the brothers is just the
Arthur.
Yeah, Arthur. Yeah. I mean, you just can't understand a word that comes out of that guy's mouth.
Yeah. Well, half the time he's a little bit altered, right?
Yes.
He's a disturbed human. That's a great show. That's an awesome show. It's too bad that it's over now. The season with Tom Hardy was maybe the best season.
I did like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an awesome show. So you went back to college, got your degree.
Yeah.
Raising kids. What's your master's in?
Master's in secondary education, French history with an emphasis on the cinema.
So did you intend to go back to teaching at some point?
I thought I would. I never thought. I'm a workaholic. I just am. That's, I live to work. I don't work to live.
Right.
And there's just people like that, and I love it. But when I was pregnant with that first baby, and I felt him kick, I was like, oh, there is no way I can drop this baby off at a daycare.
Right.
So basically, it just took me from, I just had to find something else to do. I lasted 3 months before I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And my husband knew. He goes, you're not the type of person who stays home. He goes, don't get me wrong, I would love it if you stayed home. My mom stayed home with us. I would absolutely love it if you did that with our kids. He goes, but are you sure you want to do that?
Right.
And then, by the time I lost my mind, it was too late. I'd already given up. We're in Oregon, and I've now given up my teaching position.
Sure.
I've hired my replacement, and my program that I built it's gone. So my husband came home and started tossing real estate investing books. He goes, hey, I got this book. It's something I'm interested in. Maybe you'd like to read it.
Interesting.
Yeah, he bought me 4 or 5, and then finally I was like, I can do this.
So is he a real estate investor as well?
No, he's a vice president of engineering.
So was he interested in that, or was this for you?
I think he's always had an entrepreneurial spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Right now he's well, I probably shouldn't say that on this, but anyways, he's always wanted to own his own thing and do his own business.
Sure.
So I think he's always had that spirit. But we'll see.
Yeah. Did you buy your first investment property in Oregon then?
No, I wish we had.
Yeah.
We had paid cash for our house that we currently lived in Dallas. So we just locked it up for the year. Turned the security system on, had the neighbors kind of watch it a little bit. And we're like, it'll be fine. And then, we just closed the house up, moved to Oregon for a year, and we rented an apartment.
Yeah.
We got rental furniture, bought a TV, and it was, of course, the big ones. It wasn't a flat screen that's easy to transport now, right? Yeah. So we're like, got it sitting on the box that it came on in the corner. Went to like Kmart and bought dishes. I mean, just lived kind of like
you were in college.
Like we were in college, just like it was fun, and we did it for just totally cheaply and didn't really need a lot of stuff, and went out to like every restaurant, went hiking.
Nice.
Skied, what do you call it?
There's Hood.
The Timberline.
Yeah.
And stayed at the Timberline. Skied the last weekend in August.
Wow.
Well, because they've got year-round snow skiing in Portland.
Right.
So.
Yeah, some years there's more snow than others, but
Well, yeah, they make it's glacier.
Yeah.
I mean, you're up there on a
Right.
sheet of ice, basically.
Yeah, I grew up skiing at Mount Baker, which is in Washington, which there's a glacier up there too. But yeah, it's man, it's just another world. It's different living here, you know.
Yeah.
But there's trade-offs to anywhere you live.
Well, and that's why if you love to travel,
Yeah.
like I do, so I usually am on probably about 6 trips a year. Even with Corona, I did 3 this year.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything at the end of the year. Usually I try to do something big that kind of takes me off the grid a little bit.
Sure.
But, even if it's just to, Mexico for the weekend, for a long weekend, go just fly down to Cancun for 4 days.
Good for you.
So
That keeps us all young, right? That adventure spirit.
I just love if I stay home, I'm going to work.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you own your own business.
Yeah. There's always something to do.
Especially since my business is, on my phone always, so, and if you live like that, like where your business is on your phone, the second you wake up, what are you doing?
Yeah, you're
checking your emails, and I've got 6 email addresses, right?
Right.
So I'm looking, making sure all of those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, is everybody working on their projects?
Right.
Checking up, looking at the spreadsheets, online spreadsheets. Okay, is everybody doing what they're supposed to do?
Yeah.
Are we checked off here? Are we green?
It never ends, especially if your businesses have anything to do with construction, because there's so many variables: people, material, weather, governing municipalities,
Well,
just whoever and whatever.
I'm sure you know that super well. I mean, you've got to be on site a lot of times during the
Right.
day, making sure that everything's going well,
Mm-hmm.
checking with your guys who are running each of those jobs. But then you're planning out calendars at night. You've got to do all the billing and
Absolutely.
make
Yeah.
sure that receipts are accounted for. And
Yeah, it's not a 9 to 5 job.
No.
I mean, it's 24/7.
It's 24/7.
I mean, it's tough. I always have to tell my guys, man, if you want a 9 to 5 with 2 weeks paid vacation, this is not the business for you. But if you want to make an awesome living and make money fast, it is the business for you. So there's, again, a trade-off to everything. So where'd you buy your first property then? Back here?
Back here. So we were only in Portland for a year, and at the end of that year, I was pregnant again. And so I said, I want to come back and have this baby, with my doctor. I don't want a new doctor, and I don't want to have this baby in Portland. So, okay, no problem. So we're moving back to Dallas after a year. He found another job market came back, and I bought an 8-unit apartment building.
How'd you find it?
My next door neighbor was a realtor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just kind of
Just started sending me stuff, because I read duplexes, triplexes, and quads.
Right.
And it said, well, I'm like, well, if a duplex is good, triplex is better, quad is awesome. Well, then 8 units, 8 doors must be great.
Right.
So he started finding me all sorts of cool stuff. So in retrospect, that was a hard first project to have.
Yeah, I didn't need a lot of renovation before it was ready to.
Needed basically everything renovated.
Yeah.
And it was low income, and it was hard.
Yeah. Did you Section 8 it so that you
I
could?
tried.
Right.
I Section 8'd most of it anytime I could. But, a lot of it was you were unable to section, some of it you had to take a regular rent to keep it full. So
you bought it vacant, renovated it.
No, it was occupied.
Was it?
Yeah, and there was a lady when I first bought it. She'd been living there 19 years.
Wow.
And when I sold it 7 years later, she was still living there. Miss Leia.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Wow.
It's nuts. I have no idea if she's still there or not.
But you got it, up to snuff?
Yeah, I did.
Fully rented out?
Yeah, so I bought it $153,000.
Wow, for 8 doors. That's pretty crazy.
Sold it on financing at $250 with 10% down. I took that back. I ended up taking back like 4 years after that, 3 years after that, something like that. Couple got a divorce who bought it, and they're like, we just want to give this back right now. We just don't want to deal with this. And I was like, all right. And then I just wholesaled it.
Interesting.
Yeah. At like, I forget, like 220, something like that. So I did well on it. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I cash flowed, made money on it, but earned every penny.
Yeah, right. Yeah, especially on those. Did you manage all the rental side of it yourself, or did you have a management company do that?
I self-managed.
Oof, God.
When the market collapsed in 2008, I had 61 doors that I was self-managing. Wow.
So what was your criteria for vetting a renter, a potential renter?
Anywhere?
Yeah. Did you put them all through the paces?
Right. No. Once I really got rolling on that it turned into all Section 8. Okay. So like when I took over that building, nothing was Section 8. But by 2008, 100% Section 8. I had, I did a fourplex in East Dallas, 100% Section 8. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't even risk one door.
Right.
Which really was awesome because when it collapsed, when the market collapsed, I couldn't borrow any more money and I couldn't grow my business any further, but I wasn't missing a single rent payment.
Right.
So, and that just went along like clockwork.
Yeah, the government, they send those checks on time.
Direct deposit into my checking account the first of the month.
Yeah, nice. Did you always focus on the multi-door units, or did you start branching out into single family at a certain point?
Mostly single family. I mean, I still had a lot. I had duplexes. I had those as well. I mean,
finding all those with realtors, or you do at that?
Realtors, wholesalers, finding them on my own, driving around,
knocking on doors.
Yeah, I got into like one townhouse community in particular, and I was trying to buy as many as I possibly could. I had this idea of maybe taking over the entire community, and owning the entire thing was what I was thinking I might be able to do. And one of those, I started basically doing my own skip tracing. So I was like, the number on the sign was wrong. Nobody had been over there, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, does anybody want to sell this thing, right? So I ended up leaving a voicemail on some number that I found attached to somebody's name online. Turned out it was like an answering machine at like an oil change place. And a guy called me back. He goes, how did you get that number? And I'm like, I don't know. I was just, going through public records and that number popped up. And he goes, we really do want to sell. He goes, yeah. So
why wouldn't you put a good phone number on the sign if you really want to sell?
Yeah, nobody was calling me back. It was, I think they assigned it to somebody, and that person just wasn't really doing anything with it.
It's weird.
It was like 6 partners. Yeah. And the guy was like, we've been trying to get this thing sold. Yeah, how much do you? I'm like, well, what do you want for it? I ended up buying that thing for $8,500.
Wow.
2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, fireplace, backyard. Great little property, and it rented for $725 a month.
Crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, I had to put money into it, obviously. But yeah, now I was buying up stuff left and right.
That's awesome. How did you start cutting your teeth on the construction side of things? You just, the best way to start is to start. That's what I tell people. The best way to
start is to start. And I just, that, was kind of word of mouth. And I fell in with a plumber. Name is Junior. Oh my gosh, how old is he now? He's got to be 75, 76 by now. And he just kind of took me under his wing, and then he introduced me to everybody in his network. So it was basically everybody in his neighborhood. And I gave people, he'd come to me and go, hey, this guy really needs a job. And I'm like, okay, well, this is what I need done. I ended up hiring a guy, a friend of his who became my personal construction assistant,
Nice.
And he was running around and following, I could do 3 times as many projects because I had him as kind of a foreman.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. So you kind of got lucky right at the start there to find somebody who proved themselves trustworthy.
Yeah. I found him working at the property across the street almost right away. And I was there and, I'm out in front of the house, and I'm going to stick out, it's South Dallas.
Right.
And he came over and he's like, are you lost, ma'am? I'm like, no, I just bought this. And he goes, oh, I'm a plumber. And just Junior got lucky. And I'm like, this is my first time doing anything like this. And he goes, all right, well, let's take a look. And he taught me everything. he showed me exactly, hey, this is wrong. It needs to look like this. And, it was just, he was a really great, it was kind of a lucky break.
Yeah.
On finding somebody like that.
If you were going to give advice to young real estate investors in terms of how to find properties, where would you tell them to start?
Well, I'd tell them to stop looking for properties and try to buy non-performing notes. And we've talked about that.
Yeah, so great segue.
Well, it is it's a great segue into, what I do now. But I try to explain that to investors. And I'm like, why do you want to buy, wholesale deals like that, buying them at 80, 85%, of ARV, when you can come in and be picking this stuff up at 30, 35 cents? Are you guaranteed that you're going to get that property back? No, you might just get it reperforming into another note. It's just, it's the hard thing with non-performing notes is money. If you're going to buy a piece of property, there are tons of people wanting to just throw money at you.
Right.
You've got hard money that's, out there literally saying, we are not going to look at your credit. We don't care what you've done. We're just going to look at the property.
Right.
We just want to lend you money. With notes, it's not like that. Notes requires cash.
So let's start at the beginning with what a note is for all of our viewers who
don't know what a note is.
Yeah.
Note is a mortgage, and you are buying the debt on a piece of property. And if it is non-performing, that means that borrower has not been paying for a while.
Okay.
So you can come in and immediately move to foreclosure on them.
Okay, but you have to buy that note. If it's a non-performing note, so there's a deadbeat living in that house not making payments.
Correct.
How many months do they have to not pay for that note to be qualified as non-performing? 2? 3?
That is debatable from some people.
Yeah.
It takes 120 days before you can start the foreclosure process here in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
In some states, it could be up to 2 years.
Right.
So you really have to look and see, what state that note is in before you decide to jump on it and go, yeah, I'm going to take that one down. So as far as how long these people are not paying, I got a sheet last week, like a spreadsheet. I get several hundred of these. I just kind of go through and see which ones I'm interested in. I make bids on those. There were some of those people hadn't been paying for a decade.
Who's holding the note? That's just a large bank.
Bank, lender, hedge fund, a private individual like myself.
They've never moved to foreclose to get these people out.
No.
Why?
There's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. I don't foreclose. Perhaps they tried to at one point, and maybe they filed bankruptcy. A lot of those times when it goes, especially 10 years, is probably because that non-performing note has been sold and resold. Like it was part of a package.
Right.
And then, it didn't get worked out. And so they put it with a bunch of other stuff that they had that didn't get worked out, and they sell that stuff off as a
So
package.
what, just after it's changed hands so many times it falls through the cracks?
Yeah, it kind of falls through the cracks. And then once you find it again, a lot of times, depending on where it's at, they might not have boots on the ground to be able to go deal with it. So
a lot of what you're picking up or a lot of the details that you're finding are in pretty rural areas?
Not at all.
Okay, so it runs the gamut?
It runs the gamut. Like I could buy it in downtown Chicago. I bid on that last week. Any major city. New York, sure. Right now, there's tons popping up.
Okay, so you buy this note from whoever's holding the note, whether it's in private hands, public hands,
yes.
Big bank, private investor, whoever it is.
Don't care.
You buy the note, you bid on the note. They're obviously going to sell it to the highest bidder.
Yes.
You have to pay for that note with actual
cash
funds.
Yeah, that's the down part.
Right.
I mean, it really is. I have bought, and at the beginning of the year, I bought some cheap stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was a package of 3. I had to buy all 3. I couldn't just buy the one that I really wanted. The other 2, though, were cheap enough, but they were like mobile homes on some acreage. And, those are the last ones that I bought because everything got so expensive after that. But, I mean, those are already performing.
Okay. So if you buy the note and it's not performing, how do you get the inhabitant to start paying?
You talk to them, first of all. A lot of times,
Hey, I'm coming and buying the debt on this. I'm buying this note.
I bought the debt on this. I
I
am
am
your
the
lender
new-
now.
right.
Let's get you right.
Right.
Because probably for years, right, however long they haven't been paying, they've been wondering when all of a sudden they're going to come and all of their stuff is going to be on the curb, right? And the locks are going to be changed. They have probably in the back of their head been wondering when that was going to happen for a long time.
Right.
Once you stop making payments for a while, like 3 or 4 months, the bank won't accept any partial payments.
That's right.
They want paid in full. So at a certain point, they can't even get caught up because they can't even keep it at a reasonable level.
So they know they've been preparing for the Reaper for however long they've been in arrears.
And so when you go and talk to them, then you're like, all right, well, what I want to do is I want to modify your loan and get your payments right. And let's figure out what you can afford. So in a month when it starts, they're paying something reasonable, like before
that they can afford, that's sustainable.
Yes.
But are you going back and figuring out how many months they're in arrears and working that back into the principal?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the great thing is you can also do principal reductions for them, because let's say that the property is worth $100,000. Their unpaid principal balance is $70,000, right? Maybe with all their missing payments, now it's $85,000, something like that, right? But you're going to go buy it at 30 cents on the dollar.
Right.
Or 40 cents on the dollar. Let's do easy numbers, 50 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
Right? Because, things are expensive right now. So let's say we buy it for half of that unpaid principal balance. Well, that means I'm picking that thing up for $35,000.
Right.
And it's worth $100 if I take the house back.
Right.
They think they owe $85, and I paid $35 for it. So am I okay if they want to sell it as a short sale? They're like, well, we wanted to sell, but all we could get somebody to pay for it was like $75,000. Boom. When can they close? Right? Because it's $75,000 and you bought it for $35. You just made a quick $40.
That's when your payoff happens.
Yeah.
Is when the title on that property changes hands.
Possibly, or you just do it for the cash flow.
Okay, so the cash flow, if you've got 100 doors, 50 doors, 20 doors, and you've got positive cash flow on
all of them,
or at least 90 to 95% of them.
No, all of them.
Okay. And because you paid cash for that non-performing note, you put all the chips in to take it down.
Yeah, so I have investors who back me.
Right.
Obviously, but I've been doing this a long time.
Right.
If I'm talking to people just getting started, it's a little trickier. I have them start with different assets, going, okay, yeah, I can go take down a single family house, right, that brings in $1,000 a month, basically principal and interest, right? That's the cash flow on it. Basically gives me a $12,000 a year raise. I can do that. Maybe, though, we're shopping for you more in the mobile home section, right? That's on 4 acres. One of those I picked up for $1,500. Yeah.
And what's the appraisal value on that property?
I resold it. It was already vacant. So it was super easy just to get title cleaned up, taken back, all of that. And I sold it for $70,000.
So you made $65,000 after closing costs.
Oh, I sold it on payments.
Just by doing some research.
Yeah. No, I had recouped.
Explain that. It sold it on payments to those.
I owner financed it.
Right.
At $70,000. So I took $7,000 down. And then I gave them a note at $63,000, and then they're paying it off over 30 years.
And nomenclature favorable to you as the note holder there if they default.
I get to go take that property back and do it all over again.
Right.
But I always want to, I don't want to sell anything for just cash.
Right.
I don't want to sell it off straight. I mean, unless there's a viable reason to do that. But I really don't.
Why is that your ethos? I mean, I know the answer, but for anybody answering or watching, why?
Because if you are a flipper, you might as well go back and get your 9-to-5 job.
Right.
Because it's a job.
Yeah.
And it never goes away. As soon as you finish that project and it sells, you've got your large chunk of money, but you got to already be working on your next deal. So you can never stop. For me, I've got notes. And if I decide to not work today, I don't have to work today.
Right.
Because I make money while I sleep.
They continue to perform, assuming you have
my note servicer
residents who are doing what they're supposed to be doing.
I don't ever put somebody in a property with the goal that they will fail.
Right.
I only put in strong borrowers.
There are owner financers who do put people in that are somewhat predatory. There's huge companies that will allow you to rent to own.
Correct.
Correct. They take your down payment, they take your inflated monthly payments, and then if you get behind, they keep all of that. You're out. They just start the process over.
Yes.
Right.
I don't subscribe to it. I think it's a horrible business.
Just because of the bad karma involved in that?
I believe in karma, yes. And there's a lot of bad juju with doing that to people.
Right.
And I hear...
You're talking about a place where people rest their heads.
Well, you're talking about people who have worked and saved, for, in some cases, 5-10 years, every possible dollar that they could, and they took their life savings to buy their American dream and own a house of their own. And they were going to fail from the beginning because they were told that, you'll be successful at this anyway.
Well, and the deal was very predatory when they signed it and they didn't see it or didn't realize it or weren't properly informed.
Correct.
And there's
didn't understand it if they were.
Well, and there's debatably very little governance with regard to private lending notes. There is, for sure, there's some guidelines you have to, and laws you have to follow. Those deals have to be written a certain way. But I'm just saying that nobody's watching out for the little guy. So if he needs a place to rest his head and you're saying you can live in this trailer home on these 4 acres and I just need $25,000 from you as a down payment, but if you do step out of line in one way, shape, or form, I'm taking this back and throwing your ass out in the cold.
There's car dealerships like that as well.
100%.
That come with a low jack.
A low jack. Yeah.
And if you miss your payment, they just go and take the car.
Yeah, they'll come open your garage door and take the truck out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again,
100%.
it's really no different from those guys. Same exact thing. And for me, no, I want them to succeed because my motto is be the bank. I look around, especially at 2008. What did we see? Banks were forced to take bailout money. Forced to. They didn't want to.
Right.
They were forced to. Who paid it back first? The banks.
Right.
Did they make billions from it? Yes.
Yep.
They did. They took that money and they made billions with it. And so my thing is be the bank. And what is the bank? The bank's not in the business of owning property. Bank doesn't want to foreclose. The bank just wants to continue to get their monthly payments the first of the month, have them be on time. So and that is what I look to do.
And part of the reason also why you're not really interested in flipping or in just selling for cash is that once you've received that actual amount, that sum can never grow.
Right.
Whereas the property is always appreciating. If it's land, it's always appreciating, unless it's in an earthquake zone or something like that. Right? Does that boil it and distill it down and oversimplify it?
Right. So I own the piece of paper.
Right.
I buy and sell pieces of paper.
Right.
They are secured by that piece of property that's going up in value.
You own that property, though, if those people don't pay.
If they don't pay, I can go get it.
Right.
Right. And so that's my security. But I don't want to go get it. I just want to get my payments. And, everybody's like, well, at the end of 30 years, then you have nothing left. That's why I want a rental property. You have
30 years of cash flow.
I have 30 years of cash flow.
Right.
And I can tell you.
Add that up. That's way more than
way more. And, what landlords, like people with rental properties, like small landlords, don't realize, you are working for 30 years on that house.
That's right.
Working. Yep. And it's, yes, because of vacancy rates, because of remodeling that you have to do, because of make-readies, because of sometimes theft or vandalism.
Right.
Any of that stuff, you've got the upkeep of that house. And that costs money. And you're constantly putting money into those rental properties.
Right.
Whereas the note, you're not responsible for any of that.
Well, and it's their home. So they're going to maintain it, take care of it, because it's theirs. They're making payments to you, the bank, the lender. So it's in their best interest to keep it up, keep the grass mowed, keep the snakes out, make sure that the thing is got some value. If I ever have to sell it or I want to leave it to my children, it needs to have that value left to it. Yeah, when you're a landlord and you're just renting, your properties are always declining in value because they're being treated differently than if you had owners in them
that cared about them.
Right. Did you teach yourself this notes technique? Did you discover it?
I was at this. I didn't even know about networking events or anything like this, and I'm trying to think. I was already in this probably a couple years. So maybe this was around 2007. I had 6 or 7 rehabs going at the time. And my husband and I had been watching Flip This House with Dan Merrill and, the hot, sexy football guys. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, Dan Merrill's coming to town. And my husband's like, really? I go, yeah, he's speaking at this thing. This back then it was like Kathy Crow had the Dallas RIA, which was like the only real estate networking group in Dallas. And I go, yeah, it's at this thing. It's $20. He goes, do you want to go? I go, yeah, let's go meet Dan Merrill. And so I showed up at that thing and I walked in, and back then, the only people there were like really old and didn't have all of their teeth and, it wasn't a good looking crowd. But I walked in, I look, like $1 million, hair's all done, ready to meet Dan. And Kathy Crow came up. She's like, honey, are you lost? And I was like, no, I'm here to meet Dan Merrill. And she's just like, are you a real estate investor? And I'm like, I've never thought about calling myself that, but I guess I am.
What did you call yourself before that?
I don't know.
Flipper?
Yeah, I don't know. I just never thought of investor. I just had never called myself that before.
Right.
And so I go, yeah, I guess so. She goes, well, what do you do? And I go, well, I work kind of in this one area called Pleasant Grove. And she goes, really? And I go, yeah, I've got like 3 houses on Red Cloud right now that I'm renovating. And then I've got some across the street, blah, blah, blah. And I'm naming off these streets. She goes, you hold on and stay right there. And she came back with this really big, real estate investor back then in Dallas. And he goes, this is why I come to these events. So I meet you. And I'm like, really? Me? He goes, nobody here is doing what you're doing to that level. And I go, really? And he goes, yeah. So he goes, tell me about what you're doing. And I told him he goes, I know these exact neighborhoods. Kathy and I have flipped there. And so
which means there's value there.
Oh yeah. I flipped one 2 years ago there.
Well, I'm just saying when birds of a feather flock together. If there's people looking in a neighborhood, it's because there's value there, right?
So yeah. And I told him I was a Section 8 landlord, and I rented all of them Section 8, and he said, we need to get you into owner financing. And I go, I kind of like what I'm doing, and that's what I said. And then, come to the crash happens. And then I had an unfortunate incident with one of my Section 8 tenants who decided to go off her meds and threatened to put cap in my head, blow my brains out because I wouldn't sign a paper that said she paid all her rent when she didn't. I mean, just crazy stuff, right? And that really freaked me out. In fact, had a little PTSD, didn't get out of bed for 3 days, which is saying a lot for somebody like me. And then I decided I couldn't stand them anymore, couldn't stand the clients anymore. And so I knew that I had to do something different. And so, he took me out for lunch, and then he's like, let me teach you how to do it. And then, so I started owner financing my whole portfolio. And then he goes, I need some help. I've got all these houses that we found.
But back up 1 second. You have this whole portfolio. These are all renters.
Yes,
how do you
61.
How do you turn all of those into owner finance? Or are you kicking some out, getting some new in?
I wasn't kicking anybody out. But
how are they coming up with a down payment, though?
Well, no. When they would leave, see, when you got 61, I was having,
Oh, you'd wait till their lease was up, then
right. No,
convert
right.
it.
And so
I got
at the end of their lease, like you have 61, you've got several leaving every month.
For sure.
So I was doing 2 or 3 owner finance deals a month. But what I found was I had all these buyers then, right? I had, 20 buyers for every house. So then
because you're marketing it as for sale.
Right. And I'm putting, I was
they
putting up
don't
illegal
know.
bandit signs. I was doing all sorts of stuff, right?
But they don't know that you, who's got a for sale sign, are also the bank.
Right.
You own these all free and clear?
No, I have debt on most of them.
Okay.
A lot of them, which is called a wraparound mortgage. So you can owner finance something that has, in fact, most people don't know this, but all the big banks, they have underlying debt on every single one of the mortgages.
Right.
So they've got investors to pay on every single one of your
mortgages.
Most
people understand that banks run on debt.
Yeah,
so they get us in debt, but they're in debt. So it's this big circle of debt.
Yes.
Which is why what happened in 2008 was so destructive, because there wasn't any money, because everyone was being pulled in a debtor direction.
Well, I mean, our entire world economy is really just ones and zeros.
Yes.
Right? It's all bits. So when you try not to think about that too deeply, but it's not like we're sitting here like all of a sudden there's a vault somewhere.
No, we don't go pay for it with a piece of
we don't have
silver,
silver holding onto that, right?
No.
And the same thing goes for borrowing money. The way the mortgage market works, I love how people see, the Fed lowered interest rates to 0. Right. It's at 0. I can go get a 0% mortgage. No, you can't. Well, the rates are going to go lower. No, they're not. And then, rates are going higher. Well, why is that? A lot of it has to do with what is the demand on the backside for mortgages being created. So when you see rates rising, right, going higher and credit tightening, that's because mortgage-backed securities are tightening. When all of that stuff is loose, that means that a lot of people are wanting to buy mortgages to create mortgage-backed securities. Mm-hmm. So then they have to get more mortgages.
Gotcha. Why did Big
Short?
Great movie. Let's talk about that in a minute. Why did Big Investor, who the gal brought over to meet you at this conference, why was he looking for you?
He's an attorney, an owner finance attorney.
So what, he wanted to close those, he wanted those title policies?
He wanted to show me how to do it, then he could create somebody to go that was out there creating all these owner finance mortgages. That's definitely more business for him.
Right. That's a long con, though. What are you making, $500-$600 per title policy?
Yeah, but there's a lot of us who like to give back and teach.
So I was wondering about that, and I was wondering if you would say that, because while that is true, and you and I are those types of people, people reach out to us, and I don't charge someone for my time. Yeah. Because I've asked people for help in the past and they've given me the cold shoulder because I'm not big time enough or I'm not an influencer or whatever. But also because when I figure something out, I get really excited about everything I had to get through to get to a successful point. And I want to share that.
Right.
And that's not just with friends. It could be with people. You've introduced me to people who I've helped.
Yeah.
I've introduced you to people who you've helped just out of the goodness of our hearts. So this guy was there trying to find people who had the acumen to pull this off.
Right. And, and then I became a partner of his.
Okay.
We're partnered in 3 different LLCs.
So he's like, he started backing your plays then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So, and that's what he was looking for too, because if he has somebody out there, then, okay, well, she's done all this. And then, they had, he and
so you're bringing him deals.
Then I started bringing him deals.
Right. Gotcha.
Then I started moving, because he and his partner, they kind of had a shady person working for them that got fired. But then they realized they had like 50 some houses that were just sitting there, not performing, not taking anything. So then I went in and started owner financing all of those for him.
Okay.
So, and I would just, go find someone, and take a fee.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So he took you out to lunch. Would you consider that guy a mentor?
Yeah. I would say yes, definitely. And I think, it's kind of lucky that, I learned, that's what started me on the path, and I worked with him for probably, 3 years. It didn't end the best. But no, I think I should be grateful to him for everything that I learned, because I am where I am today because of him.
Right. That partnership probably made him money just like it made you money.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously now you're making money because of what you learned.
Yeah. Well, and of course, now I've expanded on that knowledge, that initial base knowledge. There's always, something else and, but once you have kind of that core of something that you're really good at, and then being able to expand on that. I mean, what I'm doing and, how I created my main company, not everybody has that wherewithal to do. Mm-hmm. I had a brother who was a managing director for a very large investment bank on Wall Street banker. And so I asked him to start introducing me to people. Sure. Which is how I got my buyers,
Gotcha. Talk about how important and how difficult it is to keep investor relationships solid. You said you've got investors who back your plays. What's that all about? Transparency?
I think transparency is huge. And communication. I think the number one problem that people have, they invest money with somebody and then that person just stops calling them. Mm-hmm. And I think if you keep good communication and make sure that you do everything that you say you're going to do, regardless of if it's in your interest or not, making sure that your investors are protected. They're going to bring more people in.
What do you do? How do you address an investor who's not holding up their end of the bargain?
That's rough. I try to keep investors as investors. I like giving preferred returns, meaning that they're not expected to do anything past that initial investment. Mm-hmm. I have had deals where, they all of a sudden you had this investor and they presented themselves as having very deep pockets. And you get into the project and going, okay, we've got this that came up. And they're like, oh, I don't have money for that. And then you realize all of a sudden that they were supposed to be providing all the money and you're doing all the work. And then all of a sudden, I'm cutting a check for $8,000 out of nowhere. And I'm like, well, how is this right or fair, right? And you're still making your portion, but, we're just not getting this. So I don't like partnerships for that reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to make sure that things stay fair. But having somebody who just invests in that they're promised a preferred return, I just find is so much easier.
In your own words, dissect preferred return.
So preferred return is more like if you would borrow and you'd offer an 8% preferred return. So it's basically like a loan, an unofficial loan on that property if you're giving them a preferred return. Mm-hmm. And then on top of it, they might get, 20% or something of, the profit.
Sure.
But at least the preferred return I feel good about and they do too, because they're cash flowing along. It's not like they're hounding you every month going, when are you going to be done with this project? When's
your payments are coming in every month, and then you're sending out dividend checks to your investors every month or every quarter. Okay. How often are you finding a property, a note, whether performing or non-performing? You probably don't buy many performing notes, do you? Because you can't get a deal on those, or do you?
I buy them and I pay a lot for them. Yeah. Because that's my main business, are performing mortgage notes.
Okay.
So I pay about 10 to 15% more than anybody else out there doing it.
Do you have a threshold there? Are you looking for a percentage of the note that's left?
Nope. I buy the whole thing.
Okay. So what if a note is 80% paid off? Are you still going to buy that? Because you've still only got a shot at cash flow for the timeline over that it takes that 25
years.
Yeah.
20 years.
Yeah, unless they win the lotto and try to sell it.
But even if that happens, then you're paid off of whatever that unpaid principal balance is.
Mm-hmm.
If I buy something today and it refinances in a month or sells in a month, I'm still going to make money.
Mm-hmm.
You make money every month that you have a performing mortgage
right.
note.
Yeah. Because your cash flow, the money coming in, is outweighing the money that has to go out.
Yeah. So a lot of times, if I'm looking at when I buy something, yes, if I'm giving an 8% return, like to my investors on it, I'm collecting 10.
Right.
So, and a lot of times people are like, oh, so you make 2% on that. I go, yeah, I make 2% on a good portion of it. I own, I'll own all 10% of those interest points on probably maybe 10 or 20% of that note. But the rest of it, yeah, I only own 2%. But if you go into like your amortization calculator, so, if I did something like that and I went to my little pig, which I love, my little pig thing,
right.
and I want, $1 million over 30 years, $1 million over 30 years at 2% interest is basically $3,700 a month. So, if I can do that time and time again, and I'm only making 2% interest on these 30-year AM notes, yeah, they pay off and I've got to go find new ones to replace that capital. But, every million I'm making $3,700 a month on that for putting those deals together.
How often are your notes getting refinanced, paid off, sold?
It happens.
Just all depends?
It all depends.
Yeah.
But a lot less often than you'd think.
Okay.
The average note stays active for 5 to 7 years. My oldest one right now in my portfolio is originated 2009, I think. And I've tried that guy. That guy has a 770 credit score. I have tried to get him to refinance because I'm like, dude, don't you want to refinance? He's paying me 9.9% interest.
Okay, I was just going to ask what your average interest rate is.
Yeah, 10%.
Why won't he refinance?
Doesn't want to. Happy
Why?
with how things are. And he had a first and a second. So, and he's already paid off the second to me. So we had it set up that, he put 10% down and then he had a 10% second that was at a higher interest rate. And he paid that down really fast. And now we're left with this, it was like an 80-10-10 loan.
Right.
Right. And so now we're left with the bulk.
Wow.
And he's been paying. He just always pays like clockwork.
Wow. Well, he sounds ideal. How many times out of 10 are you buying a note and the property is vacant and needs enough renovation to get it livable again?
50%
50% of the time, 20% of the time?
It's about ready to go higher right now. In the last
So what do you do on
in the last year, I'd say probably majority of what I buy is performing by far.
Okay, so they already have good people in them,
Yeah.
and they're already in good shape. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. What if you buy a non-performing note in downtown Chicago? What do you send a crew up there to do the reno and get it ready?
So I grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
So I've got
I'm sorry.
I've got a ton of people on the ground.
Gotcha.
Ground there, I put a team together, but I've already got basically, my realtor and the realtor. I find that when you're flipping, renovating, doing anything out of the area you live in or work in, getting that realtor to work with and kind of be a team partner with you on the thing is so important. What people don't realize is that realtor wants that house to look good, right? So they're going to go in and oftentimes it doesn't really matter. They're going to go, hey, we need to paint this or we need to put some bushes in out front, right? And they will do that with any property they sell because they don't want to waste their time. They want to get top dollar for it because they're paid, based on their commission is based on the sales price. So they don't want it to sit on the market for 120 days and then get a really low offer. They'd rather sell it in a week and, get the highest offer possible. So they will actually go and look at what that contractor's doing and make sure that contractor does a good job. Yeah,
having a conscientious realtor is so important, and it's much more difficult than most people bank on to find a good one.
And so I pay my realtors a bonus.
Nice.
For that.
When you buy let's keep it on this non-performing thing. So it's a distressed property. You fix it up. You go to sell it. You don't want to just sell that.
No, I would.
You want to sell it to someone who's financing it through you.
Yes.
But the realtor is going to bring in anybody and everybody who pre-qualifies, right?
True.
So
you can do either or.
Are you throwing out any offers that are conventionally financed? Because you really want to hold on to that note long term?
I really do want to hold on to that note long term. I don't, and it's just a cash flow thing. But
well, I mean, if you sell it, you just flipped, and like you and I know, it's just a beating. I mean,
it is.
The flipping thing it's a
how much cash flow can I, that is my number one goal right now. Increase my monthly cash flow.
Right.
So, and if I get a great deal, because you really make money when you buy, right? How good of a deal did you buy that property at?
Right.
Well, that's hard to find good deals on properties. They're fewer and far between.
Yeah, if it was easy, everybody would be doing that.
Right. So if I go burn that, and now I'm, I don't have, something, it's a lot harder to go and increase my portfolio and keep making it bigger and bigger if I'm only selling.
So how do you find that buyer who's going to finance it through you then?
I do it. MLS is a great way to do it.
And you just say this is an owner financed. I know a lot of people look for that. Why? Because they have distressed credit or limited resources or whatever.
But what people don't know is on MLS, there's a box that the realtor checks that says basically they offer owner financing.
Mm-hmm.
Seller will carry first, seller will carry second.
Okay.
They just check those two boxes.
And there are people whose search criteria are for those properties and those alone.
Sure.
And what is the reason why a seller would want to owner finance?
Because they want the monthly cash flow, or perhaps it's, the house isn't perfect, or maybe it's not updated enough. When you own or finance a property, you don't have to put in granite.
Right.
You want it to be.
It is what it is.
Right.
Take it or leave
and
it.
What I tell people is, especially if it's going to be a homeowner that doesn't have any construction experience, make sure that the roof is solid. Make sure that the HVAC is good. The water heater's good. It's got good walls. Everything it's a solid house. The foundation is strong. Right. And all of that, people like to paint.
Right.
Right? It's their house. They're going to change that paint color. They want to put in, they're going to learn how to put in like the vinyl strip flooring, or they're going to put in new carpeting one day.
Right.
But that's stuff that they like to do.
Right.
So I always tell people, don't worry so much on that.
Sure.
Just make sure everything's clean, looks good. I mean, rental grade's okay.
Yeah. Why does a buyer want to owner finance?
Doesn't have to put as big of a down payment down in a lot of cases. I mean, yes, there are programs for first-time home buyers.
Right.
And their credit might not be pristine.
Right.
And they don't want to throw their money away on rent anymore, but maybe they only have a 600 credit score or a 550. And so there's a whole demographic of buyers out there that don't trust banks. So they don't want to put their money in a bank.
These are the people with the money under the mattress type folks.
I have seen people come in with $20,000 in a grocery bag.
Bring 20 grand to the title company?
In cash.
Doesn't the title company tell them to go to the bank and get a cashier's check?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. They were like, we can't take this. You're going to have to go get some money orders.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Yeah, because if you're just entertaining a buyer demographic that just wants to buy and has their own financing, then you just turned back into a flipper.
Which you can. I mean, I'm not going to tell you.
Well, I'm not saying if somebody came in and offered you 50 over ask,
right,
you wouldn't take that and move on.
For an example, I flipped a house a little over a year ago out in East Texas. Did not want to buy that house. Kind of forced to buy it. And
it was part of a deal.
It was. I was wholesaling a package of 13. And it ended up, I had a buyer for all 13. That guy fell out. It was just a kind of a dramatic mess. And then it ended up going to 13 different buyers. And like 2 or 3 days before closing, one of those buyers backed out.
Gosh.
And I was like, ugh. And it was buy them all, close all, or close none. So I'm like, screw it. Let's take it down. Let's do it. And I bought this house for $39,500. 3 bedroom, 2 bath, out on 4 acres. middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah, you've told me about this
Yes.
one.
Yeah. Exactly. So, and all I'd seen was an aerial Google shot of it.
Yeah.
Never got a single photo. And I'm like, on paper, this thing is worth like $135,000.
Yeah.
It's built in 2007. Can't be too bad.
Performing note on that one?
No, it was a foreclosure.
Okay.
It was an REO property. So, it's already vacant. And I sent the realtor over there because I was planning on just wholetailing it. I'll stick it up, I'll just stick it up on MLS. And, I bought it $39,500. I'll sell it like $65,000 or something like that. Should be a home run deal for someone. She goes, have you seen this thing? And I'm like, oh no, how bad is it? Right? I'm like, no. She goes, this thing needs like carpet, paint, and some appliances. And I go, what? Really? And I'm like, are you sure? And she goes, there could be some other stuff we could do. She goes, maybe a new front door. I'm like, okay, a new front door.
Yeah.
Carpet, paint, and appliances.
Yeah, we're talking like $5,000-6,000.
Yeah, all into it. I mean, we had to redo the sewer line to the, what do you call it? The septic tank.
Yeah.
That was, because it had been shut off for years. Just getting the utilities back onto the house. That was the challenging thing.
Interesting, just because it was out in the county. And,
it was just getting somebody to go out there. So that took a couple weeks. So the whole thing took start to finish 6 weeks. I said, I want it sold fast. And I'm like, fast, like yesterday fast. I go, what do we need to list it at to do this? She goes, 110. Like once we had everything done, I was completely 100% into that thing at like $52,000.
Nice.
Sold it for 110, full price, all cash offer first day.
And that was a sell flip. That was you were sold out of the thing.
I thought I was going to owner finance it.
Yeah.
And I just said, offer owner financing, but I want somebody. And she goes, if you're offering owner financing, I'll have like 3 or 4 people over here.
Right.
Because I'm like, it's East Texas. Somebody will come in.
Absolutely.
But then somebody came in with an all cash offer for it. I'm like, take it.
Done. Yeah.
Let's be done. Take it. Yeah.
How often are you getting eyes on all your doors? Are you doing you're not doing drive-bys just to make sure nobody, I don't know, that they're mowing the grass, that they're taking care of it.
Why would I care?
Well, I guess just because if you ever do have to refi it or foreclose and take it back and find a new owner financing buyer, you'd want to make sure it's not in terrible condition, right?
They're required by their deed of trust to keep it up, but you can't see the inside of a house.
No.
But
you can tell pretty often if the outside's completely neglected is yeah.
And not all
just a waste of time.
Not all my stuff is in Texas.
Right.
So, it's not like I can just get in the car and drive by some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anybody put eyes on them, really.
Sure.
If somebody stops paying, I'm going to have somebody drive by and see what's going on. But if people are paying current, there's no reason to.
Yeah. If somebody wanted to dip their toe in this note
thing
business, this note thing, you mentioned that when you start talking to beginners that you're like, let's maybe get you a mobile home one to get started with something
cheap, right? So there are cheap notes out there. Like that you can pick up. They were like the cast-offs that people just didn't want to have in their portfolios that they just didn't do anything about.
What are we talking about here? Like abandoned shacks out in the middle of nowhere?
Sometimes, yes. Now there's and people need to be careful with stuff like that. I've had others, where like this one, and she doesn't even know. This one note investor, she does not even realize that she just presented it to me again for the 3rd time. And the first thing I do, like I was going to buy it. She's like $1,500. And I'm like, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath on like a full acre. It's down by Victoria, Texas.
Yeah.
This
other refineries. Yeah.
I'm like, that's a freaking home run, right? And she lives up in like Michigan, upstate Michigan, and she's like, I just don't want to deal with it. It's down there in Texas, and you're in Texas, you want it. And I'm like, $1,500? Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I found out almost a year ago that I called up a realtor and she goes, I know what those houses are. Yeah, the developer who built that area out there, never incorporated that road. So the county doesn't maintain it. And it is only drivable 6 months out of a year. So the road completely goes underwater and people have to take boats. So they park their cars up on the highway and they take a boat to get to their house. And I'm like, that would be why. So you can only sell the house really 6 months out of a year.
Yeah.
And then you've got to have somebody willing to live like that.
Sure.
And I'm like, this is somebody's hunting cabin. This is not.
Yeah, no doubt.
This is not going to be somebody's primary residence.
Right.
So again, you have to know that. And I told her all that. She goes, really? And I'm like, I'm sure you realized that when you had it on the market trying to sell it like 3 years ago. Oh, right. Yeah, just seeing if anybody wants it. I'm like,
come on, man.
And she's given it now to me for the third time. And I'm like, so you got to watch out for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, there's some gold out there too. And there's just a bunch of stuff that people don't want to deal with. Mm-hmm. An old mobile home on some acreage is something that a lot of hedge funds just don't want to deal with. They're like, oh my God, do we really want to go put get a sign out or stick it on Facebook Marketplace, and say owner finance property.
Right.
Which is all I did. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't go there. I just stuck it on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
And, I got a buyer.
Mm-hmm. Is this note space not as popular and not as talked about just because we don't see it on TV? I mean, let's be real here.
You can't, you can't film me. There's nothing sexy about what I do.
Right.
I make money. I buy and sell pieces of paper, but there's nothing sexy about that. You can't go see the reveal on the house.
Shiplap. No.
Oh, look at what we're doing here.
Right.
And people can't comprehend. It's all math too. Mm-hmm. And most people hate math.
Right.
And aren't good at it, and you start saying numbers to them. And, just like what I did on my thing, on my calculator where I'm talking about 2% interest.
Right.
People hear a number like 2% and they're like, well, that's not profitable.
Right.
But
yeah.
But it is, and
absolutely.
so once it takes somebody who likes math, I believe it's lower risk because I'm not getting in there doing a big renovation usually.
Yeah.
You can owner finance something that as is. Those mobile homes, I didn't do a damn thing to them.
Right.
How many times have I done that? A bunch.
Yeah.
I picked up, this was a couple years now. I did it for some contractors working for me. Mm-hmm. Still has gone down as probably the worst business decision I've ever made, and I knew it doing it then. Picked up this mobile home up in Sherman, just on a regular lot, needed everything. But these people were living in somebody's garage with their 1 and 3-year-old. And when I say garage, I mean garage, like with a space heater and the lawnmower in there type deal and all of their stuff, and they were camping. I'm like, it was not a good situation, especially with 2 little kids. And so I said, you'll all need to fix this up. But they were contractors. So they had all the friends and stuff. And I thought it would be a good deal. They ended up not making a single payment on it and did nothing to it.
Right.
And I just said, hey, we're just going to rip this up. This didn't work, sorry. And I found, stuck it on Facebook Marketplace. And I just said, hey, super easy, $500 down, $550 a month.
Right.
For this mobile home. You own it. And I had so many people that wanted that. And then she was like, the girl who ended up getting it, her church came over and rebuilt that thing in a weekend. Painted it, gave it all a brand new kitchen.
Nice.
It was awesome. She's the perfect person to have it.
Right.
And she's never missed a payment.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you get a list, you mentioned you get these lists of all
I get a
these
spreadsheet.
notes.
Spreadsheet of all these notes.
And that's just because you've been networking, doing this. How long have you been doing this? This note thing?
Well, definitely since 2008.
Yeah.
So over a decade.
Okay.
Is when I started, originating notes and understanding how mortgages work and all of that. And then I started Capricorn back in 2015, 2016. It took me a little while to figure out what I was doing, to actually have a company. When I first started out, it was like buy a note, sell a note, buy a note, sell a note, that's not a company. That's not a business.
Right.
And taking it to the scale that I've done now, that took a little while to figure out.
Mm-hmm. When you get your list and it's got all of these notes, performing, non-performing, and then it's got all your values on there.
Yeah.
What is your magic? Is there a magic number when you're putting in your bid? You don't have to give away any of your secret sauce here because I know you've got
No. I
programming.
don't care. I'll tell you whatever you want to know. So my first thing when I get one of these sheets, because sometimes, well, especially pre-COVID, I don't know what's happened since COVID. It's nutty. We're not getting near the volume that I used to. Back in January, I'd get one and it'd have, 500 or 1,000, addresses. Now, it might be 40 or 50 at a time. So first thing I do is I scan down and I look at the state. And, I will highlight the states that I like. Right now I'm shopping for really like six different metroplexes, state areas, and then I go and I look at the unpaid principal balance. And I look at the value of that property. And what I'm looking for is to see that the unpaid principal balance is less than what the value of that property is. And then I take 50% of that unpaid principal balance number. And, do I like those numbers? Is basically what it boils down to. Is that a good deal? Right. Sometimes I'm willing to pay more than that. And I've got, right now they're coming out and they want like 80%, 90% in some cases for non-performing notes, which is insane.
And this is just a recent thing?
It's been since COVID. Since COVID.
And why is that?
I don't know. I can't explain it. And I've talked to other note investors who've been in the industry a long time as well. And I'm like, what are you seeing? And they're like, we're not seeing any product, no tapes. We're not seeing any non-performers coming through. And
so has this been kind of a slow year for you then?
As far as non-performing notes, yes.
Yeah.
I've sold a handful, and I mean a handful. Whereas, in 2019, oh my God, I sold a couple hundred. Yeah. Of just non-performers. They were just, super easy to move. I knew exactly who's buying, who's got money, Right. And, I'm just, hey, I've got this. Isn't this what you like? And sure. Usually with a text message, I'm selling non-performers. Now I just don't even have them. Or if we do, they've started popping up since September again, September, October, really. And so we've started, making crazy amounts of offers again. I made 50 offers a couple weeks ago, didn't get any. And I'm like, I bid 60% of unpaid principal balance on these. What do you mean I didn't get any? So,
But like you said, you make money in real estate when you buy. So if it doesn't make the numbers don't make sense at the beginning.
Right. And what I'm telling all of my guys, patience, because the floodgates are opening. Right. We're going to get through January. We need to see where these runoff elections end up, and does our Senate stay red? That way everybody will kind of know, is there, are there more banking restrictions coming up or not? Right. And there's still a lot of stuff in flux, and we really don't know where the economy is headed just yet. Right. But as soon as that happens, people will know how to deal with their stuff. Yeah. Are we getting more stimulus? Are we not? How much is it? Until we get all of those things and the dust settles, you really don't want to be rash and start selling things off at a crazy pace. Right. And I think it has to do with really what your neighbor's doing as well. In my opinion, if I was running a bank, I'd want to also know, okay, well, what's the guy down the street doing? Is he selling yet? Is he holding all of his stuff? And kind of wait to see how everybody else is reacting as well. And right now, nobody is, they just start holding on to this stuff. They don't need to sell it, so they're not.
So all these banks, these big hedge funds they're just, hey, you got to pay us a premium if you want these at all. We're just going to hold on to them for now.
Right now, yes. I think a lot of it has to do with the moratorium on evictions, foreclosures, which shocked me. I thought that would come out and that would push everybody into wanting to get rid of these non-performers. Right. I think we're going to hit January. There's no real expectations that everybody will be vaccinated until July. So I full on out think they're going to kick that moratorium on evictions and foreclosures down the road until at least May or June, I would have to imagine.
Gotcha.
Well, because it's winter.
Yeah.
What, January 1, they're always going to say, hey, go ahead and foreclose and evict everybody?
Right.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
It's cold out and virus is on the rise. It's worse now than when they decided to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we'll hit January and they'll say, yeah, we're not going to let you evict or foreclose.
Gotcha.
Until the summer.
How many doors do you have right now?
I don't.
Notes. How many notes do you have right now?
I can't answer that. People
Okay.
ask.
A
People
lot.
ask. It's
So
a lot.
you have a lot.
And it changes.
And
it changes all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because people are always refinancing or selling or just
Or I'm
whatever.
buying more.
Or you're buying more.
Like
so
what am I working on what am I working on today?
Sure.
I'm working on like 5 sales today. So
sales meaning
purchases, and then and then I'll sell them here in the next 7 to 10 days.
You're gonna buy the note, but you're not gonna keep it long term.
No, it'll be gone in 7 to 10 days.
To another investor.
I've got 2.
So you're kind of wholesaling some of these notes.
Oh, I wholesale them all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you're only going to keep something that you really feel like, man, I really want to keep this in my portfolio.
No, I will not, because I guarantee these.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee everything that I sell. So I will never purchase or anything that I don't want in my portfolio myself.
Okay.
That I wouldn't mind having. So as far as, what I decide to keep and what I don't, I end up actually keeping the riskier ones that maybe wouldn't fetch a high enough price.
Okay.
I've had notes that I didn't intend to keep, and all of a sudden, I found that none of my hedge funds, none of my insurance companies, banks, REITs, any of those guys wanted them. So all of a sudden, 8 months later, I still had that note.
You still had the note, but you're still collecting payments every month, so it still made sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So whether you sell them or keep them, either way.
Correct.
But you're trying to keep more than you sell? Or it just all depends.
Right. For 2020, I've been kicking that around, especially with performers. I tend to sell my performers off more than I keep them, because I'm raising money than to go buy non-performers.
Right.
So, and right now, I thought that I was going to start keeping more performers than selling them. That has not come to fruition, just because I'm savvy enough to know that we're headed for a down cycle. And so when that happens, when we go into a bad real estate market, you want to be as cash heavy as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell everybody, start, stockpile cash.
Yeah.
I started saying it back in March.
So you're ready. Keep your powder dry.
Keep your powder dry.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming. So what are you going to get? Now, have I stopped investing? Have I stopped buying? No.
Why is the note space, if anything can be, they always say liquor, that's liquor and guns are recession proof. People are always going to be buying those. Why is that note space?
Why is it recession?
You learned a lot in 2008. We all did. I got hammered too. Why is that note space more attractive and safer and more dependable, maybe?
So most people know that what really took down the mortgage market were the ARMs, the 3, 5, and 7-year ARMs. I tend not
adjustable rate
mortgage. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. Sorry, everybody. I tend not to buy those. And I don't originate them either. Right. I only do 30-year fixed. Okay. And there's certain laws now. I think the minimum balloon rate per Dodd-Frank is 5 years.
Yeah.
But I still don't like adjustable rate mortgages. I like 30-year fixed. Interest rates are high. We're not going to see interest rates get raised for the next decade anyways. So if I'm selling something at 9 or 10%, I'm making pretty good money on it.
Yeah.
So that being said, that's what caused the mortgage crisis. Even with that, all of those adjustable rate mortgages and all of those bonds failing, right? Because it just created the mortgage-backed securities, which a mortgage-backed security is just a bond.
Right.
Which is, you can go buy a municipal bond, right? People know that. I can go invest with my city and buy a bond.
Yep.
Well, this is a bond that's made up of mortgages. And when it hits a certain thing, that entire bond fails and you lose all the investors who bought into that bond, lost all their money. Everything.
Right.
So, but still knowing that with all of those bonds going bad, mortgage-backed securities never stopped for even 1 minute. They never stopped being traded. Mortgage-backed securities are the reason why there are so many people who are able to borrow money and go have a house.
Yeah, I would say the fact that none of those mortgage-backed securities ever stopped being traded should tell everyone something.
Well, people are going, what's the prognosis for the note industry? And I'm like, the note industry did not stop for one moment, not one day did it stop back in 2008.
Right.
Does that mean that I think it's just going to keep going? Yes. In majority, you have to remember that, everybody's going, hey, are we headed for another Great Depression? We very well could be. I hope not. I hope, the powers that be are smart enough to keep our economy out of that position. But if we do end up as something like that, it was like 40% of Americans, were the ones that you always see the movies about.
Right.
But that also meant that 60% of Americans were actually doing pretty well.
Right.
And we're okay. And you still had people making money and, being wealthy and, still lending money. Yes, you did have a big percentage of Americans who were out of work, but you did have a lot more that were working. So you have to remember that and know that, yes, there are going to be a lot of foreclosures coming. That's inevitable. But there's also going to be a lot of mortgages that don't foreclose and that people just keep paying on. And, it just goes on. It's not going to be that high of a percentage.
I know you've got a math background and you studied a lot of math in college, but do you work on continuing education and things of that nature, keep boning up on your math skills as you continue to try to scale? I mean, you're a grinder, so staying in one place and having a 2020 that is the same as a 2019 would never be satisfied.
No,
with
it's
that.
Completely different.
But as you scale, when you're a business owner, you have to continually be acquiring new skills.
I read a ton.
Yeah,
a ton now, and people are always shocked by this because I get asked all the time, hey, what is your favorite book about note investing? And I'm like, my favorite book? I go, I've actually never read one.
Yeah.
Never read a single one. So recently, in fact, they just came in 2 days ago from Amazon. I got on Amazon and I ordered every single note investing book that was on the Amazon site.
Okay.
Every single one to be delivered.
How many is that?
It's a large stack.
Yeah.
And I've started going through them, and I'd love to say that I've learned anything yet.
Yeah.
I haven't.
A lot of it is just regurgitated.
Oh.
Or
a lot of it is
elementary.
It's bad.
Yeah.
Some of it is just bad.
It's a lot like
and
real
some
estate
of it is the real estate
stuff.
Investing books where they say nothing and it's a bunch of garbage.
It's all they just talk in circles.
Thrown up and spewed out on a page.
Right. Yeah.
I'm hoping that I'm going to find some golden nuggets in some of this. But I just decided, I'm like, I want to see what's out there.
Sure.
What if you wanted to, I'm self-educated and everything that I get is from my own experiences as an investor.
Right.
There was nobody to teach me how to go sell mortgage notes.
Yeah.
I mean, most people didn't even know that they still don't know there's a market for that.
No.
And in a lot of cases, I created the market, like a very, a place where people have a place to bring it to and know that they're going to get a decent deal and, about what that deal is going to be. Gotcha.
Is there a skill that you have attained or curated in the last 10 years since you've been doing this that you couldn't live without that skill now, that getting
That's a really good question.
Getting scaled up
question.
And managing the hectic chaos of having so much going on, new investors, paying out dividends. I mean, you got a lot. You saying a lot of balls in the air it denotes the wrong thing. It's the wrong term, but you've got a lot going on.
Right. So my personal goal for 2021 is, did you ever read The E-Myth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So that's probably the best book that I can ever recommend that anybody reads.
Okay.
Right? E-Myth. I am putting the E-Myth to practice. And I have told people for years it's the best. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to run your own company, that's what you have to do. And, I really believe that I have to take to heart. I need to stop working, I need to stop working in my business and work on my business.
Your systems and processes.
And I have those. I've created a lot of those, and I need to hire more people.
Okay.
And
good people.
Hard
to find.
I know. And, and that's the hard to find part, because I've started, right? You start.
Yep.
And then you try it, and that person doesn't work out, and then you're just like, screw
then
this,
you're like,
and I'll do it myself.
I don't want to spend all the time to train this person
right.
if they just flake out, and I'm going to do it all myself. But you can't scale doing that.
You can't.
And you got to understand that whoever you hire, if they do it just 80% as well as you do, that's good enough. Now, I have a hard time with that. I need you to be a lot closer to 90. For me to be able to be like, okay, I don't have to check on you all the time. But the problem is then those people who you hire, you've delegated those responsibilities to, they start to really resent you if you just are writing their case all the time. Hey, have you crossed that T? Have you dotted that I? And I am like, the details, the death is in the details.
So I am very, very detail oriented.
Yeah.
Very. And it drives me crazy when I assign something. And so, with my own personal assistant, who I love this woman, right? And she's virtual. I don't make her go anywhere, she can work from home in her PJs, and she's been doing that for years for me. Mm-hmm. Cool. So we didn't miss a beat, for quarantine.
Yeah.
First thing, I'm like, all right, what's going to really annoy me? I asked myself before I trained her, what will annoy me about the job she does? And what really annoys me is when all of my labels in my Google Drive for like my files that I'm sending over to an attorney or a banker or somebody, that they aren't all perfectly the same.
All formatted.
Yeah. And each document is formatted the same
right.
in every single file.
Yep.
And everything's got to be perfect. No spelling errors. And that was the number one thing I started with, because I'm like, that's going to irritate me.
Yeah.
She's probably going to need some practice on, some of this other stuff or uploading it. I get that. Cool. Mm-hmm. And I'll have to teach her more stuff along the way. But that's something easy. And if she knows that that's what I'm really looking for, so.
Absolutely. So when I have entrepreneurs on here, we talk all the time about how when it's your business, it's your baby, but you're also kind of like an artist, because your business can become anything that you want it to be. You're creating all the time. Explain in your own words what you learned from that book, The E-Myth, about working on, not in your business, because a day can devolve very, very quickly from I have this planned, and these are all macro things I'm working on that are going to affect me in 75 days, 90 days. But then I got to put out this fire. I got this wolf at the door. I got this. And then all of a sudden it's 8 p.m.
Right. So what I'm telling people is, or, when I look at it myself and what I'm telling myself, anything that I can explain in 5 steps or less, that should be going out to an assistant.
Right.
Anything. And that's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
So if I notice that I'm doing something that, I don't care if it's taking me 20 minutes, if I can find a way to get rid of that 20 minutes,
right,
and get it and give it over to somebody else, because there's a lot of stuff I shouldn't be messing with.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody could easily be taught how to do that.
Right.
So why am I doing that?
How are you going to map out your pointed diminishing returns to where I've got all these good people and they're helping me and it's making my days, I'm buying all that time back. I don't have to do any of this admin, data entry, none of this. Actually, maybe you could even send all your lists, all of your note lists over. You could have someone do a data analysis on that and come back to you with, hey, Kristin, you should look at these 75. And instead of you having to review those for 3 hours or however long it takes you, you sub that out. Well, at a certain point now, you've got to pay all those people. And you got to pay them well if they're good people. Well, there's a point of diminishing returns to where I got all these good people, but now I got to work even harder because I got all these salaries to offset. Have you mapped that out?
I haven't mapped it out for everything.
Yeah.
There are
part of that, could you incentivize people and pay them some commission-based something to help offset some of that salary?
So majority of what I need, what I really need, because I run, in essence, 3 businesses simultaneously. And they're very different businesses. They have different websites. They have different email addresses. And let's just take for my Airbnb business. Who am I hiring this week? I am hiring somebody, basically a porter. I need somebody who can go and do the exterior of a house, make sure that the patios are clean and that, this one house has a bunch of pecan trees around it. I need those leaves removed from it before a guest checks in every single time to make sure the outside is perfect.
Right.
So that's somebody that I'm hiring this week. Is that something that I necessarily can charge back to the properties or to my clients? Because this will be primarily for houses that I manage. So can I charge that back to my clients? Absolutely. Any money that's spent there, a majority of it will be paid for by my clients.
Sure.
Because it's an expense to having that house. Should I ever be there supervising this? No. Right. I shouldn't. So then my next step will be, and it probably won't be till spring. I want to get closer to the vaccine being distributed, but I'm going to go up to UNT and I'm going to find somebody who is a graduate of the hotel hospitality management school, and then have them come down, and I'm going to have them take over all of my apps. And
Daisy might know somebody.
Daisy would know
She might know somebody up there at North Texas
is that where you
Hotel.
Go? Yeah.
Yeah. In hotel management and hospitality. Yeah.
Yeah, no. So that was my plan. I was actually planning on doing it this past spring.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I don't know where things are going to land.
Yeah.
What's
much
the
uncertainty.
Airbnb business even going to look like?
Right.
I'm dropping prices because I don't know what's going on.
Right.
And then, then I had like the best summer ever. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
Oh gosh, I was booked. Like there was maybe 5 or 6 days during the summer that I didn't have.
How many Airbnb units do you operate?
Currently 12, and I'm getting a 13th one up.
Right on. And are those properties that you found through the note acquisition deal, or is these you found them through realtors, wholesalers?
Realtors. So I have a realtor who was searching for them for me because I had specific requirements of what I wanted. I found one on my own, off Zillow of all places. It was for sale by owner.
Yeah.
Cool.
You're looking for value and location there?
Location primarily. Mm-hmm. So, and now, now that I've been doing it for 3 years, I know, the one that I just finished, Sekou went over. Sekou saw it.
Yeah.
And we pull up, and it doesn't look like much from the outside, right? Yeah. It's pretty awful. I picked up that, and it's in Uptown. It's in Uptown, right off of Cedar Springs, Oak Lawn area. Walk to restaurants.
Yeah.
Just totally awesome area of town. Picked up that 1 bedroom, 1 bath for $90,000.
Huh. Wow.
And
Amazing.
I had to 675 square feet.
Yeah.
So it's a tiny thing. Completely knocked out all the interior walls, opened it up, raised the ceiling, gutted it.
Yeah.
I moved where the breaker box was, put in a new breaker box.
Yeah.
I put in water shutoffs because it's a condo.
Right.
And just all sorts of crazy stuff in that
Sure.
place. But all into it, I'm like $125,000 all in.
Nice.
And I've got a traveling nurse now who has been there a month, and he's renting it for $2,500 a month.
Yeah. Right on.
I wanted
that's awesome.
$3,000 a month. Take $2,500. That's fine.
Yeah.
When you figure how much, I think the other places there are renting like $700 a month, $800 a month, and I'm getting $2,500 for mine.
Right. So we've talked about this before, and you, Ryan, and I, and think your husband was even involved in one of our conversations. Why aren't you a guru? Why aren't you out marketing yourself more heavily with regard to, hey, I can teach you how to do this. I can make you.
So I think you know that I've got a group that I've started.
Yeah, and I was going to get to that.
Yeah. So I guess I've become a guru. I always hated that title.
Right.
I'm like, I'm not a guru. I'm an investor. And
you're
I've got
doing it, not just teaching.
I'm actively doing it.
Right.
It's
your full-time job.
It's 24/7. I'm doing real estate in some form of investing.
Right.
And again, as I told you when we were just sitting down and starting, this is my first month. I just went a full month in years that I don't have a renovation project going on.
Yeah.
And it's actually really nice, and it's allowed me to focus on when I'm writing a book.
Yeah?
Yeah, I
About
am.
what?
Note investing.
Yeah, okay,
How to be
cool.
a note investor, of course, So I've got that, that I'm really trying to focus on and start doing like a chapter a night type deal. It's been a long time since I've written something like this, of this magnitude and size.
Are you dictating all that content?
I'm not. I'm going old school. I've got like note cards. So
I'm
getting the outline together, and I've got a rough outline, and I've started doing, I just read a lot, and I just go, oh yeah, that's a great fact
That'd
to put
be a
in.
chapter.
That'll be a chapter.
Yeah.
And so I just put stuff together that I'd want to put in there.
Your group, talk about that, and how can people join that?
So reach out to me. The group is different. So I'm not. One, I didn't want it to be crazy expensive. And I also didn't want it to be this, you join for a month or 2 months or 3 months, and then there's no ongoing benefit to being part of it. What I wanted, I'm like, because I'm an investor. So what do I need, right? If I'm going to do this, I want something beneficial in return.
Right.
I have money. I make great money as an investor. I make a hell of a lot more money as an investor than I do of mentoring people.
Right.
A lot more. So for me, I want to build these guys. I would like to do a group and have 50 to 100 really solid note investors, millionaire note investors, so that I have this whole community and pool of people where I can sell notes to, where I can buy notes from, because I teach everybody how to go fish for themselves.
Right.
Hey, this is how I do it. This is how I built the people who I buy notes from. This is how I found them. Now you go do this for yourself, and you go build up your own list.
Right.
And I can buy notes from you. You can buy notes from me. And then we all have money. Okay, let's borrow money. Maybe you've got some money that you want to go, hey, I don't really have a note, but I've got some money that I'd like to invest. You want a JV on something?
Sure.
And if we had a whole community of that, 50 to 100 of them, and then what does everybody want? Everybody wants deals.
Right.
So maybe they're not into cold calling and creating these relationships. So I give them first crack at all the deals that I get that come across my desk.
Okay. Yeah.
Non-performing notes.
How many people in the group right now?
We got 2.
Okay. And when somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they reach you on email?
On email, the easy email is info@capricornmortgage.com.
Okay, great. And you're speaking next week at the event at the Virgin Hotel, correct?
I am.
Yeah. And what are you going to cover? This?
I am going to cover, I'm actually going to try to inspire people to, jump ship from investing in properties and come do non-performing notes.
Yeah. So when I met you, I've only known one other guy, and I've been in real estate investment, 25 years, something like that, who in the note space, and he doesn't live here. How often are you rubbing shoulders or elbows with people who are in this business?
Are in the business?
It just seems like it's
a small
really
community.
Seems like a very segregated, small space.
It is. It's a small community.
So to me, that just screams opportunity then.
Oh, it's lack of competition. Yeah. It's, and that's kind of what I'm saying. If people are like, I can't find anything to buy. I can't even buy any properties. Right. Go buy a non-performing note.
Yeah.
There's a zillion of them out there, or there were, right? Seemingly there were a zillion out there.
How much cash does somebody need realistically in their back pocket that they don't need to touch for the next 30 years to buy a note that's going to create positive cash flow?
So let's just start with how I got started. And I think a lot of people, and this is a whole book on its own, but you're familiar with the BRRRR Method, correct? Well, that's what I did. That's how I got 61 doors, was the BRRRR Method, before it was called the BRRRR Method. I was started it back in 2005. And I
summarize that for the people watching.
Sure. That's where let me just say what I did, right? The BRRRR Method is where you're going to buy a property, you're going to rehab it, you're going to rent it out, you're going to refinance it, and then you're going to repeat. So pre-08, you were allowed to, one, have your own appraiser, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And
no shit.
You could refinance with no seasoning.
Right.
So what I would do is day one, and I had a private money lender, hard money lender, Bay Mountain Capital, Dean Lantos. I was his first, and he didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I'd go and I'd buy this cheap house, and he'd pay for it. And then I would go rehab it, and it would take me 2 weeks to get it. I mean, we're rewiring, replumbing, new sheetrock, paint, walls. They're smaller houses.
Yeah.
They're 1,200 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses.
Sure.
And so we're doing all of that 14 days. On around 10 or 12, day 10 or 12, I've already got constant marketing out there for Section 8 renters. Well, I start showing it, because they can basically see what it's going to look like,
Sure.
and it's all brand new,
Right.
and they're like, well, this is awesome. Yeah, I want to live here. So day 12, I've already got my packet, my Section 8 packet, landlord packet that I'm going to turn into housing, and I know that I'm going to be inspected in about 10 days. Day 14, the appraiser comes in, appraises it. I buy it $30,000, then he appraises it at $90,000. 14 days later after I've rehabbed it. And then, I'm refinanced the next day.
Right.
Without making one single monthly payment to my hard money borrower,
right.
my hard money lender. So
now,
and I did that over and over again.
Right.
So then I had a 30-year fixed mortgage on all of these properties.
Right.
Or whatever, not all of them, but a good portion of them, right? And I was going in and then wrapping those mortgages. So to get started with like my initial, little group of mortgages that I had, I didn't have any money out.
Yeah.
None. Now, can people do that still today? Yes. Can they do it on a 14 or 30-day turnaround like what I was doing? No.
Right.
There's laws against that now. But you could go in, buy a house, fix it up, owner finance it, or maybe not even owner financing it. And then, refinancing it down the road or selling your note down the road so that you can start originating these notes and start building cash flow without having really any money to start.
And this entire system is something you walk people who are part of your group through.
Sure. All day long.
Let's figure out how to get you from zero knowledge of how to do this to actually doing it.
The crazy thing in this group, because I do so many things actively in real estate investing, right? If it's out there, I've done it. Even multifamily, which, it's not a favorite thing of mine, but I know what I'm doing with it.
Sure.
We talk about Airbnbs. They're both buying Airbnbs now. They're both,
Nice.
One's buying condos and putting nurses in it, like what I'm doing. The other one's got something up there. I talk about my systems that I have in place that I can manage Airbnbs from anywhere in the world.
Sure.
As long as I have a Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
I can be anywhere. I can still travel. I'm not tied anywhere.
Awesome.
So we talk about that. We talk about how to originate notes by owner financing them. We talk about how to talk to investors and get money.
Yeah.
How to borrow money to buy notes. We talk about how to borrow. We did a whole thing on hard money lending because I used to be a hard money lender. So it's, now, I understand.
You know how the sausage is made.
I do. And I understand it from the hard money lender's point of view. So that just makes, I can tell borrowers how to be stronger for that.
You bet.
Once you know what their goals are and how it works.
Awesome.
So again, and we talk about all of it. I'm like, all right, what do y'all want to know about?
Right. Yeah, it's not just limited to the note space.
It's not, but the note space is exciting just because of, especially non-performing notes. Majority of note investors, 99% are non-performing note investors.
Mm-hmm.
Very few do what I do in Capricorn, which is, buy, sell, trade,
Sure.
Performing mortgages. So when you're looking at non-performers, your potential for, just return on investments that are like 60, 70, 80, 90%, there's a lot
Crazy.
of potential for that.
Yeah.
Now, there's also risk, of course, because you're dealing with a lot of unknowns.
Right.
And, the way I teach it to people is, all right, here are your outcomes, your major outcomes. There's really going to be 3 major outcomes, and then there's subsets of those, right? But 3 major outcomes. Are you happy with all of those outcomes?
Right.
That's what I said. I'm like, if you're happy with every possible exit strategy, know every possible way that this could go. And if you're happy with those and you're okay with whatever return on investment any of those brings, and it might be a difference of this one might only be a 20% return on investment and this will be a 70% return on investment. Sure. But if you do the work and the math before you buy it and go, yeah, I'm happy with anything that could possibly happen in this note, yeah, that's a good note to buy.
Gotcha. Awesome. One more time, that email, if someone wants to join your group.
info@capricornmortgage.com.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You bet. Well, that was awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. We really covered a lot of ground there, and I would encourage you to reach out to Kristin directly and join her group. I'm going to. I think it could be very valuable for you. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you enjoy all of them. Even if you don't, drop a comment below. Love to know what you think about all of these. Hopefully they're bringing you some value. Hopefully you enjoy them half as much as I do. It's amazing to be able to sit down and talk to somebody for 2 hours without being distracted by a phone call or another person. Reach out to me on my Instagram anytime at Jess from the Northwest, or email me live at autographconstruction.com. See you next time.